Success is supposed to feel good, right? But for years, the way I defined success left me exhausted, striving, and burned out. Looking back, I can see I was living by myths that were never true to begin with. Today, I actually want to share with you the three biggest ones and what I've learned since. Hello, I'm Nadia, and this is She Builds Again. This is a space for women who are looking to rebuild their life, faith, and finances after disappointment and setbacks. The first question that I want to answer in this video is, what were the success myths that I used to live by, and where do they even come from? One of the success myths that I used to live by is that if I followed all of the rules, did exactly what I was told, I would be successful. In my late 20s, I honestly felt like if I followed the rules that society has laid out for us, that I would find meaning, happiness, and joy. If I went to college, if I found the right guy and got married, had kids, started the family, I felt like I was going to find success and meaning and fulfillment. And the reality is that those things alone are not going to fulfill all of us. Some people, that's exactly what they dreamed of. That's exactly what fills their soul with joy and fire. I realized that how society is set up is they really do want us to go along with the program. It's what creates order, but it's not what's gonna uniquely fulfill me in my life. What is successful to some person, what looks and feels like success to that one person, is not gonna be what success looks and feels for me. And so it really does require us to get to know ourselves individually. It requires us to ask some really hard questions and really go deep into who we are and how we were made. We were created uniquely, and that we each have our own set of skills, passions, and interests. We really do have to figure out all of those things for ourselves and then decide what success would look like for us. The reality is that a lot of people that are actually successful are rule breakers. They're people that do things their own way. They march to their own drum. They decide to break the rules and take risks. And because of that, they're rewarded with success, whether that's monetary success or just the amount of followers or whatever. They have tried something different and they're not doing exactly what everyone else is doing. They have decided to break the mold, and they have therefore found their own lane. The other thing that I would say is a myth when it comes to success is that you have to either choose between your heart or your head. And so this was a myth that I still have sometimes, and I have to continue to try to challenge myself on this one. I'm from an island called Bermuda, and the reality is that we're fed this lie that to be successful, you have to be a lawyer, a doctor, accountant, an actuary, all of these kind of corporate careers. And the reality is that there are more and more examples of people that are doing the exact opposite and still finding success. There are people that are following their passions, whether that's art or coaching or influencing or content creation, and they're finding their own lane. And I still have to actively look for those examples because they're not always what's right in front of us to see. And so we have to challenge that notion that we have to just go with the flow and go with the practical, safe thing instead of following our heart. Because the reality is that if we do follow our heart, then we'll bring more joy to it. We'll bring more excitement to whatever it is that we're trying to build and create in this world. And so I'm really working on talking about topics, even on this YouTube channel, that light me on fire, that spark an interest in me, because I think that's what's actually going to reach other people. I would say the other myth that I believed around success is that sacrifice equals success. And yes, to some degree, maybe it does, but I think that we have to be careful as to how much we sacrifice for success. And so I am constantly relearning this one, because you can sacrifice so much and not even get to where you want to, because like I said, you're draining all of the joy out of whatever it is that you're doing. You're creating a situation where you're not lit up, you're not excited to go to work. You don't even bring any kind of energy or enthusiasm to what you're doing, and it's definitely not going to bring you any kind of real lasting success. I think if you're in a 9 to 5, fine, you can just go through the motions and sit at your cubicle and do your thing. But if you're in any kind of creative job, you really do have to tap into that purpose, that passion, in order to really start to see any kind of results. And so the reality is that sacrifice isn't very fun. And maybe you sacrifice for a short time to get to your goals, your dreams, but I think long-term sacrifice, it's really just settling at the end of the day, because you're not living a life that's authentic or really meaningful to you. The other thing I've learned since I've become an entrepreneur is that if you keep sacrificing, you're gonna be depleted, you're gonna burn out, and it's not gonna result in success, because you need to play the long game when it comes to any business that you're starting. You need to be able to invest years of consistency and maybe even decades in the end. And so I think that is so important to remember, that we have to balance the sacrifice element with the self-care element, because if we don't take care of ourselves, then we're not going to show up in the best way possible to whatever pursuit that you're working on. The other part of this video, I want to talk about how did each of those myths impact my energy, relationships, or faith. And so I'll give one example of how my mindset around following my heart versus my head was so skewed. It was back in 2016, and I had left my job as a journalist because I was trying to figure out what was next for me. I knew it wasn't it. I had this battle between going for what I really wanted, which was coaching, and going for what I felt was practical and safe and realistic, which was PR and consulting. And I ended up going with the PR and consulting business. And that's all fine and dandy, because it ended up making me a good income for a few years. I think my business was active for about 7 to 8 years before I eventually decided to go back to coaching, which is what my heart was telling me to. But the reason why I share this story is because I took a sabbatical in 2016. I left my job and I went to Uganda, I went to South Africa, and I went to Israel. And so while I was in Nazareth, I was working at a hostel to try to make a little bit of money for room and board. And it was honestly the hardest work I've ever done in my life. But the thing is, while I was there in that experience, in the middle of this little village, I met someone who changed the course of my life. So I met a woman named Glowa Tanmo, and she is a Nigerian American woman. She's a woman of color. And as soon as I saw her, she wasn't like the rest of the guests. She was actually staying in one of the suites in that same hostel. They had a few like private suites. She got to travel and make money as an influencer for a living. I had never met anyone who was doing that. That was actually like one of my secret dreams that I never even dared to speak out loud, because I love travel so much. And I want to just travel and do amazing things and try to make a living out of that kind of exciting thing. And here she was, a woman of color who looked like me, and she was doing that. And it just literally blew my mind that there were people who were doing exactly what I only dreamed of, and they were making a successful living from it. Because of those myths, I was always thinking, oh, this is not possible for me, more is not possible for me. And I lived a very limited existence, I would say, for my 20s and early 30s. And it's not until I was 35 years old, I decided to take my biggest risk yet, and I moved halfway across the world, literally on the other side of the world, to Southeast Asia, which is where I live with my family. I've been living here for the last 3 years. I've met incredible people who are doing the most incredible things. You don't need to walk far here to meet people who are influencers or content creators and doing things that actually bring them joy and meaning and peace. And so I would say that even just this move has impacted my energy significantly. I'm able to show up differently in all aspects of my life. I'm still working on trying to be the best like woman and mom I can be. But I would say that my energy in general and how I show up and my willingness to meet new people has completely changed. I was very anxious socially. I was very scared before, very timid, reserved, and while I am still quiet, I think that I am very intentional also about meeting new people and putting myself out there and having a chat and just seeing what people are doing in this part of the world. And so it's impacted for sure my energy, my relationships with my husband for sure has transformed since I moved over here, and took that leap and started to think about what success means to me. At the end of the day, success means something different to all of us, and it's so important to figure out, what does a successful career look like? What does it feel like? What does a successful family life look and feel like? And so getting clear on each of those areas is so important. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is what truths or healthier perspectives have replaced those myths for you. I would say taking a risk and betting on myself, not only with starting my own business back in 2016, but also more recently with our move to Southeast Asia 3 years ago. What these things have done is help me to see that there are so many different ways to quantify success. Success isn't just in how much money you make or what kind of car you drive or how other people perceive you even. Success is how you feel about yourself. Success is how you wake up and the energy that you're able to bring to your own life. Success is the light within us that we all have and how brightly it can shine. It's getting out of survival mode and actually starting to thrive. It's actually pouring into yourself and knowing exactly what you as an individual need to take care of yourself and giving yourself exactly what that is. And so I have such a different perspective about life. I'm so grateful that I get this opportunity to live in this new chapter, live in this new season. It is not perfect by any means, but I'm constantly working to take a small step at a time to rebuild my life, rebuild my faith, rebuild my family even, because how I was living before wasn't at all how I wanted to show up in this world. It wasn't the legacy I wanted to leave for my kids. I had so little energy. I would knock off from work and almost just pass out on the couch every day. I left a lot of the parenting to my husband, who's so active and has so much energy, and he would run around with my son. When I think about it, I wanted to show up so much more happy and healthy for my son. Now that we're in a different environment, we exercise more. We have actually taken the time to figure out what success means to us, whether it's small family trips or activities on the weekend. We have so much more time and space to actually live out that version of our dreams for success. And so it's just literally taking it one step at a time. You don't just walk into or wake up and have a successful life all of a sudden, but it's about small habits and creating habits around the life that you desire to live. If you've been chasing success but only feel more tired, I want you to know that you are not alone. The good news is that you get to redefine what success looks like for you. And so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's conversation on rebuilding with intention.